Listeners, you might have noticed that starting a couple of weeks ago, we've been releasing 2 podcast episodes. That's 2 per week, which is just way different than the way we've done things for the last 6 years. In addition to our regular Monday drop, I think that's what the cool kids say, drop. Is that what you say, Sherry?
No.
No. In addition to our Monday release, we have started midweek, Wednesday or Thursday, releasing a version of our Sober and Unashamed blog read into the microphone by yours truly, because, we don't pay audio actors around here. So the whole idea is, in addition to the spoken word that we do a lot of writing around here. And what I have found in my detailed research is, who has time to read anymore? I don't think anybody reads anymore. I think it's going to be a lost art. It's like cursive. It's not going to exist in a few years. So since people don't seem to read the way they used to, we've started reading our podcast episodes to you. Those are available on Thursday. So if you're confused, if you go to the podcast and you're like, hey, where's what I'm used to? Why do I only get these 10-minute things that are clearly somebody reading? You just got to scroll down a little bit to find the episode before that. So every other episode is what we're doing today, what you're listening to today. It's got an episode number next to it. And every other episode is shorter, and it's written or spoken written word. Confusing enough for you?
You made it.
That's great. Sherry, I just want to quote you what I always hear you say: reading is for chumps.
Never say that.
I say that all the time, every night. So 2 options for you. You can also go to soberandunashamed.com and just read for yourself if you want to be a chump. Little did we know when we first assembled this crew of the Partners of Alcoholics, who turned out to be recovery badasses. Little did we know when we featured them on episode 150 at the first ever live Echoes of Recovery in-person retreat, that they would be back to help us celebrate episode 300. But when Sherry and I were talking about ways to commemorate the accomplishment of 300 episodes, let's do some quick math. 52 weeks a year. Okay, let's call that 50 to make it easier to do the math. 300 divided by that 50, that's 6. So over 6 years of the Intoxicated podcast. So when it was time to plan the 300th episode, the 6th year episode, and the podcast just had to have something smashing and fantastic. It just had to be us getting the Hummingbird Ninjas back together again. I am excited. I don't know if you can tell. Are you all excited to be here?
Yes.
Yes.
Sherry, are you excited?
I am excited.
Thrilled. Awesome.
I can't wait to hear and catch up with them.
I know. It's going to be great. Eve, since when I sent out the invitation, you were the very first to respond with some very millennial enthusiasm, I must add. There were like emojis and exclamation points. I wasn't sure if you were going to be here or not, but I was hopeful. When you were the first to respond, so I am going to let you answer the first question and explain what the heck. I mean, the title of the podcast is Hummingbird Ninjas Reunion Roundtable. I think everybody knows what a roundtable is. Everyone knows what a reunion is. What's a Hummingbird Ninja, Eve?
All right. So I first want to say that it's really special to us. Some of us have actually gotten hummingbird tattoos since the retreat. Mine's on my ankle. I'm not going to stick my leg up and show you, but you'll just have to believe me. But so when we were at that retreat, which I can't believe it was 3 years ago, there were bird feeders. Is that what they're called? Bird feeders. Yeah. And
Yeah,
they were
hummingbird
like,
feeders.
yeah,
I mean, I think
hummingbird feeders.
Specifically,
Okay.
yeah.
And there were all of these hummingbirds like swarming around us, and they wouldn't land on us. Well, maybe they did land on us. I don't remember, but they were just like all up in our faces, and it was like overwhelming. I don't know that I had ever seen a hummingbird before, to be completely honest with you. And so I was like, wow, they're so pretty. The colors are so cool. And so we just kept seeing them over and over again. It was like they were attracted to us or something. So that's where hummingbirds came from. And then I was talking to Nikki earlier because we were trying to figure out where did ninjas come from. So someone, I don't remember who, but someone was like complaining about their spouse, and we were like, oh, I wish we could all just like dress up in black and go and kick some ass for you. And someone said like we're like ninjas. And so then we added on Hummingbird Ninjas. So in the first podcast, we might have actually just been the hummingbirds, because I think ninjas was added on later, I think.
After the
We think.
retreat. Yeah.
Mhm.
That is an incredibly complete answer and enthusiastic. I
Mhm.
did not expect all that. That's awesome. And some tattoos, boy. I really didn't know when we left the mountain that day. I knew we had a good time and I felt like everyone enjoyed each other's company. I didn't realize the degree to which you guys bonded until I started hearing about these tattoos. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I get asked about it all the time because it's on my ankle, and people are like, "Oh, why do you have that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just like a special thing between a group of friends." You know, that's
Well,
usually what
and
I say.
we ended up looking up the meaning on behind hummingbird,
Mhm.
and it has a very healing meaning to
Yeah.
it. So it just kind of all
Like the Greek word origin kind of thing.
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Ask Google, I don't know. We just typed in hummingbird and like meaning and like what it means when you see a bunch of hummingbirds, and it had a really nice it had a lot of nice things to say. And like
And we all come across hummingbirds randomly all the time,
Yeah.
and we like send each other pictures. Like I didn't take a picture of it because I was flustered the other day, but I saw like a t-shirt with a hummingbird on it. Someone gave me a lamp with a hummingbird on it. People like it seems like hummingbirds are always like a part of our lives now. And like I had literally didn't even know what a hummingbird was before, because I don't go outside. And so but yeah, like we all see hummingbird stuff and like send each other pictures randomly all the time.
I was thinking about, as a lead into this discussion, we could talk about those that like to hike and those that don't. Eve, I'm guessing since you just revealed that you don't like to go outside, you were on the list of people that thought, if it wasn't a paved sidewalk, it wasn't going to be good for hiking. You were that side of the table, weren't you?
And I still am.
All right, good. Like that you're true to yourself. That's great. Well, I'm going to give my first real question to Nikki, because Nikki, for a couple of reasons. First of all, she just referenced some fact the way I do it. She told kind of something halfway and then said, I don't know, Google it if you don't know, which is kind of the way I cite my resources. So I love that. And also, we're going to get Nikki in here quickly because she's such an extrovert that if we wait too long to bring her into the conversation, her head will definitely explode. So, Nikki, we call you the ambassador because of how many cities that you've traveled to see your Echoes family. Do you know how many Echoes people you've met in person? Have you kept a tally of that?
No, I don't keep a tally, but it's probably definitely over 20, I would say, over across the country in the last however many years I've been in Echoes.
That's pretty amazing. When we met you, you were married to an alcoholic in sobriety. He's big in the Alcoholics Anonymous community and definitely does his own recovery work. Do you attribute the fact that you both do your own work and he has maintained his sobriety for the fact that you're still married and making relationship and recovery process? Talk about that and kind of how have you grown over the past 3 years?
Such a wide question. That's a lot of time to cover in short amount of time. But yes, when I first came to Echoes, I never knew the impact that it was going to take on my healing and the sense of belonging that the community has done and within this small group from the retreat. And he was in very, very early sobriety when I joined, and he still continues to do the work. I still continue to do the work. I don't think that we would be together if we both weren't committed to our individual healing. It hasn't been easy, and it definitely has seasons when detaching is still necessary and focusing on me is still necessary. And I've learned that the true progress really comes in a relationship or it can't happen unless we are both willing to look in the mirror and take like ownership of our own patterns and take on and own our issues and not just like sweep them under the rug like we used to do so many times, which is not easy. um, Over the past 3 years, I feel like I've grown a lot. I no longer try to fix everything or carry it all. I've learned how to speak up. I've learned to set boundaries over and over again. But the most important thing that I'm still learning is to give myself permission to want more. Um, Not just from my marriage, but from life. Uh, Being able to be more grounded and self-trusting and less afraid of the messy parts of this whole process of healing. It's definitely a work in progress, and we definitely are on a roller coaster of not always being in a good place. But I definitely show up differently for myself and for the people that I love.
That's great. I love how you emphasized several times in that talking about you, your needs, what you can do for yourself. Right toward the beginning, you said that if you weren't both committed to your own individual healing, you don't think you're together. You didn't say if we weren't both committed to doing couples counseling together, we weren't together, wouldn't be together. It is about an individual journey, and I think that prepares you to be the best version of yourself. And then maybe, just maybe, the relationship can thrive as a result. So I love the way you worded that. That was awesome, Nikki. Anne-Marie, you were the very last person to commit to the retreat when we did it 3 years, and that's because we had just barely met you. So right there, I knew I loved you, because anyone who's going to commit to go out in the deep, dark woods with a bunch of people she just met on the internet, that's pretty amazing. That's some self-confidence right there. But we had a last-minute cancellation, and you scooted right in there. What was that leap of faith like for you when you hardly knew us? You were already heavily involved in Echoes, and you continued to be through your divorce. How are you doing on the other side? Can you talk about those? That peppering of questions?
I'd love to, Matt. I think you very appropriately referred to Nikki as the ambassador. So she is really other than already feeling so much love for everybody in this group from Echoes, I think it was a member for maybe like 2 months before the retreat. But Nikki was really the one that like gave me that push and like calmed any nerves or hesitation I had about going. I think I had maybe like 4 days to pull all the plans together. And she was like, you should definitely go. Everybody's wonderful. We all love you. Who cares? Like, just, we'll have a great time. So I felt like even though it had only been 2 months in Echoes, that everyone is so open and transparent with their stories and their love. And I felt so welcome that I didn't really feel that nervous. It was more excited to meet everybody face to face. And I was still, I was still in shock, I guess, in a lot of ways, to feel so validated after everything I had been through. So everybody's story, everybody that would share a story, I was still like, my mind was still blown at that point. Like, oh my God, you too? Really? That's what happens in these sorts of relationships normally? I thought it was just me. So I was excited to meet everybody face to face and really share those experiences in person. But I had already felt like I had gotten to know everybody pretty well over the couple of months that we had met. But it was amazing. The retreat was fantastic. And over the last 3 years, there's been just nonstop support and love. And I believe Nikki is the one that created the chat that we still maintain called Hummingbird Ninjas. 23, the end of 2023, that's when I got divorced. And no, that's when I moved out. So yeah, it's been a process. I can look back now and acknowledge that there were certain periods where I was like, oh, I'm doing good, I'm healed. But now I can look back from where I'm standing now and say, wow, I've come even further than that in my healing. I was still pretty sad back then, and it still goes through stages, of course, right? There's still, I spent 6 years walking into the fire. It's going to take a while to walk back out again, and those feelings of grief still hit me, but I'm able to move past them more easily now. And there's so many moments where I just feel so overwhelmed with gratitude. And even though I can get overwhelmed by life, I have a house on my own, a full-time job, 4 pets. Life is busy. Everybody's got their stuff, right? I am more overwhelmed by gratitude every single day, because I never ever thought I would get to this place. I had so much fear for so long that I was going to be stuck and that I was never going to be able to live my life on my own. And the retreat actually helped me see that too, that there was hope, because there were other people feeling the way I felt, and that they were strong. And when you're in a relationship with a high functioning alcoholic, it's easy to feel crazy. So the retreat helped validate that as well, that I wasn't crazy. So I feel like the retreat helped me gain a lot of the confidence that I needed to move forward with my life in a meaningful way. So I do spend a lot of time sitting in gratitude. And Matt, I don't know if you noticed, because you were taking notes or reading, but as you were speaking in the very beginning, I was looking at all the faces on my screen, and so many of us were just sitting here with smirks on our faces. And I think it's because there's so much love. Like I'm still smiling. Like I kind of forgot already what I just said in these last few minutes, because I'm just looking at all these faces of these people that I love so much, and I keep smiling. So I'm doing wonderful, and every day gets better. I know I recorded a podcast somewhere in there on my own, and I felt like, oh, I'm doing so great, but I'm doing like a million times better than I was even then. So.
Well, that's why Sherry and I try so hard to use the word growth as opposed to the word recovery. Recovery gives this vision of going back to someplace. And that's not what this is about at all. It's about it's a lifelong process of continually exploring and discovering and getting better and growing. And I think what stifles a lot of relationships in alcoholism is you find yourself stuck with a partner who's incapable of that growth. And you want to move forward and they just don't have that in them. And, a lot of the times the divorce doesn't come because, just purely because of alcoholic traumatic outbursts. It's because one person's on the move and the other one isn't at the end of the day. And your continued growth and then coming back here to testify about it is just great. I also love how at the beginning, and where you said that you thought you were the only one. Oh my God. Can you think of anything else where there are literally millions of people in this country going through it at the same time, but many, many, many of them in isolation think they're the only one experiencing that? I mean, it's just amazing. So that's why conversations like this are so important. So glad you're here. Mindy, I want to tell you about a survey that I conducted. You were the person voted most like Sherry in a survey I conducted of myself. We have long said that you two are a different kind of nice. You navigated your husband's relapses before long-term sobriety with us in Echoes. Please talk about your anger back then. This is going back to the survey, the different kind of nice. Please talk about your anger back then and how you needed to process that, and then give us an update on how you're doing now.
Yeah, so, I thought we had hit rock bottom, but we hadn't until his relapses after rehab. And that's when I found Echoes. Honestly, listening to the podcast, when I heard Sherry in there, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? And then you, Matt, validating her trauma and what she went through. I had listened to a different podcast, not from you, that talked about detaching with love, when they're passed out, put a blanket on them. And I'm like, okay, first of all, mine doesn't pass out. Second of all, I wish he would, maybe. It might be peaceful. But last, I'm actually probably going to dump a glass of ice water on him if he does.
There it is.
That's the
There's
nice.
the different kind of nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to just jump in and say, passing out, making it peaceful, because your partner is very chatty as well. So I am with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
So,
pass
and of
out. We
course,
can have peace.
I am not condoning that ugly behavior, but so I would say I'm mostly an overachiever. You know, I was the straight A student in school, leader in clubs, leader at work. So to have what was happening behind closed doors happening, which honestly, I always thought this was a lie. My first echoes, I think I heard Nikki say, I had no idea he was drinking. I'm thinking, oh, bull girl, you knew. Okay, well, it still took me a couple months to figure out. I truly had no idea how much my husband was drinking. I just knew we were fighting all the time. And for me, it was just like, what is this? Like, what is this chaos and this circle of fighting and then everything's better? And no, we weren't the fight and make up people. Like, I don't do that. I'm not that person. Um, but you know, every time the fight was bad and he promised it wouldn't be bad again, and the million I'm sorries and the flowers that I hope I never see again. Um, I believe it. You know, this is the last time because our whole marriage wasn't this. You know, it was 5 years of a really bad cycle. Um, and I really, who are you going to tell? So when you keep that all inside, obviously it has to come out somewhere, and it comes out in gross, ugly behavior. I wanted to control them because I just wanted what I thought we were, you know, that normal suburbia family that everybody was seeing. And I wasn't true to who I was when he acted that way. You know, I couldn't stand outside and watch myself cower and cater. And it's like, God, I am not that person. Like, why am I doing this? And that just makes you angry. Like, what? I mean, I guess, you know, anger is a secondary emotion. We've been in therapy for 3.5 years. So, um, I guess the real emotion was sadness and disappointment in myself that I was tolerating that behavior. Um, and then the relapses, my gosh, like I thought the hiding was bad and the lying, but whew, a relapse is bad. Like the crazy is so bad. And finding echoes and being able to say, wow, I can show up authentic and I can just dump this horrible, disgusting story of what is happening in my life right now at this moment. And no one's looking at me going, wow, you're such an idiot. Why do you stay? Everyone in Echoes saw me for who I was and not for what I was putting up with. And that was the vent I needed to start letting some of that anger out, because honestly, I failed at protecting my kids from my anger. I couldn't look away from that fire inside of our marriage and focus on the kids. And Sherry, I think you're a better mama bear than me, so you must be nicer than me. um it was just crazy making, and we were headed towards empty nesting, and all I could think of is this it? Like, how is my life turning into this? But you know, we've all said things in Echoes, had thoughts that I would never say out loud on a podcast, and to hear other people say the same thought I had, I thought, okay, I'm not evil. Like, I'm living through hell. Um, and so, yeah, that's where the anger, it was me coping and keeping it all in. So we're 3.5 years later. We're still together. He's been sober for 3.5 years. Um, the hard work is the relationship. It's not the alcohol. As bad as the alcohol was, you know, being empty nesters and trying to figure out how we've been parents together for so long and our kids are in their 20s. And I know when he listens to this, he's going to hate this part. I call it the Tom and Mindy show. You can put us on the stage, and when the curtain goes up, we perform. We can host, we can entertain, we can feed off each other. It works. It's a great song and dance, and it's not fake. I mean, it's real. And then that curtain goes down and the audience leaves, and it's just kind of boring. We're not doing a good job of connecting with each other emotionally. We're great roommates, I would say. You know, you have the roommates fights over dishes, whatever. um, But our communication is better. 3.5 years still going to therapy, sometimes alone, sometimes together. Every month I'm like, I don't need to go. And then something new comes up at session and I'm like, I'm glad I went. And we're both working, we don't fall into the fighting pit often, but we both have behaviors that trigger the other person. And if we land back in that old pattern, it's amazing how fast that muscle memory of whoosh, the fight goes. And I mean, I caught myself yelling the other day. I finally mid yell was like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm yelling, and then tried to bring my voice back down. And honestly, if I don't yell, I'm probably gonna sob and cry. Well, I can't communicate when I'm crying. So I think we're in the discovery and learning mode forever, which of course diffuses the anger. I still have a quick temper, I'm sure. Like I think he would describe me that way for sure. I don't like my bubble bursted. I like my house. I like my peace. I don't watch the news. And when people try to burst my bubble, I don't want them to burst my bubble. If I don't want to see reality in my home, I don't have to. And that's a hard boundary to keep, but I want that boundary. So I'm not really afraid of relapse because I got a lifeline now if it happens. And to summarize everything, I guess I'm still working on it.
Oh, that was great. You squeezed a lot of content into that little bit of time, Mindy.
Well, I'm just going to say that you use the word discovery, and we're going to give credit where credit is due to Jane way back in the day, because we were kind of wrestling with this word recovery. We're like, we don't want that. And she enlightened us by using discovery. So growth and discovery. I love that you guys are still doing that, and you're doing it individually in yourself.
Well, and I hope the listeners heard you talk about the fact that you weren't able to protect the kids from the anger. We weren't able to in this household either. And, that's just an unfortunate consequence of this disease. And you own that. And listen, I know how close you are with your kids. I've seen more pictures of your kids than I can count. And I've even corresponded with one. It was over a job search thing, nothing weird or creepy. Tom hooked me up with it. It's all good. But you are an awesome mother is where I'm going with that. And your kids are great. And so you've done the best you could, and glad like you said, that anger is coming out somewhere, and it's important to have a place to vent that anger. And so glad that we know you and have been part of the vent. It's been great.
They're even great with other people's kids.
Yeah.
The Tom and Mindy show works. Like it works well. And we just have to figure that out when it's just Tom and Mindy.
There you go. Okay, we're going to play a two-person game now. We have two Kathys on this call, and we're not using last names today. So I'm going to address a question to one of the Kathys, and you can figure out who it's for, and the right Kathy can start answering. I think it'll be obvious. Kathy, you are an evidence-driven, numbers and research type of person. There were several critically important questions you were seeking answers to when you joined Echoes. I think your experience is really important for our listeners to hear about. You ultimately adopted the strategy of detachment and focusing on yourself and letting your husband make his decisions about sobriety and recovery. Ultimately, the marriage did not survive, but now you are most definitely thriving. If there had been another solution, Kathy, I am sure you would have found it. Can you speak to that and tell us how you're doing now a couple years post-divorce?
Sure. Well, it's so great to be with everyone tonight. So thanks for getting the reunion back together. I think it really comes down to what several of these beautiful people have already said, which is you can't heal a marriage by starving it, and you can't heal a marriage on your own. You have to have a functioning partner that wants to work on themselves. And, mine used to say periodically that I was trying to change him. And I didn't think I was trying to change him. I felt like I was trying to get my husband back. And I finally had to take him at his word that this is who he is now. you know? And so, you know, kind of taking that different lens, I finally accepted that the person I was married to isn't coming back. And who he became is not somebody that I was interested in, you know, spending the next 20 or 30 years taking care of. So we just realized we wanted different things. He wanted to do the dry drunk lone wolfing it route. That is not what I wanted in a partner. And so we chose to separate. You know, when I saw him this year because my daughter graduated, and you know, it was great to see him. No, and I have zero animosity. He made his choice. I made a different choice. I still consider him family. But life is too short, and you know, I've got a couple more decades at least ahead of me, and I want to enjoy them. So I'm traveling. I have very fulfilling work. When we split, I moved to a different state. I've met great friends. I have a wonderful neighborhood, and that was the right decision for me.
Do you think about the physical move as being a huge component in this? It seems to me that change of scenery, that had to be a big deal, or am I wrong?
Yeah, for me, so at the time it was incredibly stressful to be coming off of, you know, everything that you go through with being with somebody in end-stage alcohol addiction, and very serious health challenges, and then that initial recovery, and then finally deciding your marriage is over. That in and of itself, let alone getting a new job and moving to another state and building an entire network. But in hindsight, for me, it was incredibly important in terms of my own healing. You know, I'm not stuck in any of the old ruts. One of the things we used to talk about when I was still an active member is, oh, everybody drinks. And what I have learned is that is so not true. You know, it is very easy to not drink here. I would say, you know, maybe a third of my friends drink, but and even younger people, they don't drink the way we used to. And so it really was the culture of the people I was around and the lifestyle we had at the time. But the move was instrumental for me in feeling like I really was reclaiming my life and intentionally building a life that I was proud of. And now I'm so protective of my peace. You know, I was talking to my therapist last year about, you know, do I date? Do I not date? But it was never from a place of like, oh, I'm ruined or I'm swearing off men or any of that. It's just, if I want to date, why? Why? What do I want? And is that the only way to get it? And I'm not so sure. You know, I would much rather have a handful of great friends. You know, that's protecting my peace is like job number one at this point. And so I'm not shutting that door completely, but not super interested in potentially putting it at risk with somebody who hasn't done their own emotional growth work. You know, it's like the meme that was out there. I want a partner, not a project. So I would rather be on my own than, you know, have somebody who hasn't done their work.
Well, you're thriving on your own. You're succeeding in every way on your own. I think one of the most interesting things that you said was that you don't feel any animosity about the relationship splitting up, even though you went one way and he went another. That, I think, is a testament to how hard you worked to make sure you were making the right decision, checking all those boxes, and then trusting yourself. That's a hard thing to do. So I'm really impressed and proud of you, and glad that you came back to share that message, because I think that's so important. It's so easy to drag a big pile of guilt around after something goes badly, but it's not necessary. I mean, this life is for you,
Right.
and you're doing the best you can with it, and it totally shows on your face. Awesome, Kathy. Thank you so much. Dusty, your husband died shortly after you joined us in Echoes. There are now 11 women in Echoes who have had their husband die as a result of alcoholism. You were the first of our tragic direct experiences with the deadly size of this disease when your husband died by suicide back in November of 2020. You've made so much progress since then, not the least of which is completing a scientific research PhD. I mean, the work involved in that alone, I can't believe you accomplished that when you were dealing with loss and dealing with your own recovery. But that aside, losing a husband in the most tragic way, that would bring many of us to our knees, but not you. Please tell us about your life, your family, and the ways you're growing and thriving.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say it is heartbreaking to me that there have been 11 in 5 years. Like if I was the first, there have been 10 since then. That breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But um, yeah, it is interesting being on this side of being a widow. Because I did not have to make the choice to leave that situation. That choice was made for me.
Mm-hmm.
And suffice it to say, this discovery, right, of who I am, like that's when that really began. And externally, well, internally and externally, I don't live in the same world now that I did 5 years ago. My life is very, very different in amazing ways that I dreamed of 5 years ago. I was going to try not to cry, but externally, yes, it looks like things like I just finished. Sorry, I just finished my PhD in exercise physiology, from Mizzou, and I now, well, during grad school, I studied preclinical addiction neuroscience. I now work in toxicology, doing non-clinical early drug development. And it's fantastic. And I'm doing everything that I love. Um, I picked up dancing after David passed. I needed a hobby that kept me physically active and mentally stimulated. So now I've been pole dancing for about 4 years and doing aerial acrobatics, specifically lyra, the hoop that hangs from the ceiling. And regularly perform in front of hundreds of people, and it's fantastic, and I love it so much. Um, I It took me a couple of years. Um, I dove really deep into therapy, taking care of my own mental health. Um, Before David died, I knew that I had complex PTSD from my childhood. I knew that I carried trauma with me. I knew that I was attracted to chaos for a reason, right? And living with active addiction, like I did with him, just showed me that all the more. And then after he passed, I was actually diagnosed at that point with a dissociative disorder. So, full blown dissociative identity disorder, what used to be called multiple personality disorder, is the extreme end of dissociation, right? But everybody has an inner child or an inner teenager, an inner wisdom person. Everybody kind of has those parts. I'm somewhere in the middle. My parts are a little more separate than the average person, but I don't lose consciousness, lose time like some dissociatives. I say all of that because the last 5 years has been dedicated to me learning how to reconnect all of those parts. And the thing that has been the sole focus of my life since David passed has been safety, building safety and finding security. And that has primarily come internally. I've learned to show up for myself. I've learned to rescue myself, you know, when I feel abandoned or betrayed, or, you know, something triggers that trauma, that deep, you know, trauma in me. And I have been able to do it, you know, in the context of relationship, a very safe and healthy relationship that I am so proud of. And I get to continue to be the mother to 7 different children. 2 of them are biological, 4 of them are bonus children from being with David. And my current partner, who I've been with 2.5 years now, has a 9-year-old son. And I get to take all of these things that I am learning in my own discovery and give it to them. And give them the head start that would have changed my life if I had it. And that's where I am now. That's how far I've come since
That's
losing
amazing.
David.
That's amazing. We're talking a lot on this video call, on this podcast recording, about the progress that each of you are making, but I'm really glad that you brought that last piece up, because it should not be lost that this work is about more than ourselves. It's about breaking cycles for the next generation that comes after us. And I, being on the side of the alcoholic, I have a lot of shame that I can carry as a result of my decisions and my behaviors. And the thing that pulls me out of that shame every time is saying, okay, yeah, I fucked up. I made terrible decisions and I hurt people, but I also can help people not do the same thing to their kids. I can help my people and other people in that way. And you know, the connection that this life is all about, it is about sharing that wisdom. And from a you know, book education wisdom to digging in and searching for your answers. I mean, you've done it all, Dusty. You're amazing. I am so thankful. I didn't know if you were going to say this on the recording. I mean, you've shared with us about your dancing and your pole dancing, but I didn't know if you'd be bold enough to say that publicly. I think that's so awesome. I hope you have some cool stage name like the Dancing Doctor now that you've got your PhD or something like
hers
that.
is much better than that.
I bet it is.
Yeah. I do have a stage name. I've considered switching my Instagram handle for my account, my dancing account, to the pole dancing PhD.
Oh, that's even better.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. That's it. It is a sign of a well-rounded life when you've got the mental, emotional, physical, and you're working on all of them. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So awesome. Thanks for being here. And I know that was triggering for everyone else on the call, because on episode 150, which I hope our listeners go back and listen to, when we originally did this 3 years ago at the retreat, we were all sitting around a big table together and it got emotional and you started to cry. And I got to watch all these other beautiful faces scramble to get Kleenex for you silently so that the microphone wouldn't pick it. Ninja-like. It was amazing.
Ninja-like. I believe it was Kathy who Ninja-like got some Kleenexes for her.
It was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know we all wish we were together enough that we could have done that for you just a few minutes ago. Thanks so much, Dusty. Rachel, there is so much I will never forget about you. Of course, at the top of that list is your insistence that I try fresh celery juice for my reflux issues. Bet you didn't expect me to bring that up. You were navigating marriage and parenting with a husband who was suffering relapses when we first met you and at the Hummingbird Ninja retreat 3 years ago. Please bring us up to speed. I haven't talked to you in a while. Is your husband sober? Are you together? Or are you co-parenting? What's the situation? And most importantly, how are you doing? And you're muted. You're muted, Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Do you know how to turn the mute off? This is fun.
No, he doesn't. Send her.
Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, did you get it?
I got it.
There you
Oh
go.
my gosh, that's embarrassing. Hi guys.
That's the way to break the ice, Rachel. That's the way to break the ice.
You know,
now tell us about
if
your
you need some
technology
comedic,
PhD now.
if you need some comedic value, I'm here for you. Celery juice, wonderful. Still drink that stuff occasionally, not all the time. Um,
Well, it doesn't taste very good, so that's probably why. But it
my
was
daughter
helpful.
loves
Thank you
it.
very much. Okay.
You're welcome. How are things? Things are wonderful. My divorce will be finalized by the end of the year. We do co-parent. Um, he This October will be 2 years of non-drinking for him. He does participate in other things, but he does not actively drink. No active recovery whatsoever, white knuckled for the first year. I can say that I think his brain is definitely computing better now. Um, the kids are still primarily with me. He still comes to the house if he wants to visit them. He does not have a place where he can take them as of yet. So we do the best we can, co-parenting the way that the opportunity has unfolded itself. The kids have done a lot of work. My son still struggles a lot with trust. My daughter um, is a people pleaser in the making, but that is something that we actively work on. And me, I'm wonderful. Life could not be better. I love to lift heavy things, and I do that like 4 times a week. The heavier, the better. Um, I still work with my trauma therapist, not as often, but probably 2 to 3 times a month still. So I have a lot of things to work through. Um, but I have learned how to meet my personal needs, which has been like so amazing. Um, I've learned to identify those. I've learned to identify all these emotions that a lot of people talk about, especially when you're in an alcoholic relationship. Mindy kind of touched on it earlier, where, you know, I'm angry. Well, 9 times out of 10, that's deep rooted into something else. And your emotions are triggering something else. And I've learned a lot about my emotions, the lack of development they had in my marriage, to where I got to that place where if I just made everything look perfect, then everything was perfect, um, which, blew up in my face, but whatever. But it's been amazing. It has been an amazing journey to get to know myself to that level. Um, and I've come to this realization that, when you're going through this wonderful journey of life, if you get stagnant and you stop growth, you stop working, whether that be something physical, emotional, spiritual, educational, it doesn't really matter. But once that growth in you stops, like, you stunt everything. And I think, unfortunately, for my ex, that was his thing. He thought he met his plateau and he didn't want to grow anymore. So he got his kicks and he got his needs met through alcohol and substance abuse. Whereas me, I didn't want to go that route. I was yearning for something else. I just couldn't figure it out. I don't know that I figured it out completely, other than I love to grow. I love to grow spiritually. That has been a huge factor in the last 12 months. I mean, just it's been a phenomenal journey, and I'm in tune with it every single day, morning, noon, and night. It doesn't matter if something tragic happens, if something hysterical happens, something good, bad, or otherwise. It doesn't matter. I'm very grounded and I'm very present at all times. And that is not something I could have said about myself 2 years ago. It wasn't there. I still wasn't there. So learning to be present, learning to actually be able to feel and acknowledge my feelings and meet myself and fulfill those needs myself has been phenomenal. Um, and he and I mean, we speak, we correspond, we talk, we hang out with the kids, we even do family dinners. It is very, very amicable. There's no hard feelings, and we're just two completely different people, and that's okay.
It's amazing how calm you are. Like, as you talk through, that's the thing that just jumps off the screen for me. And I see some other nodding heads. the work that you're doing is obviously working. I love how you talked about how when the growth stops, it stunts everything. And you have inspired a writing prompt for the bi-weekly or every other week, however you say that, Echoes of Recovery writing prompts. I think we're going to have to do one on what is your spiritual journey like, so that we can get you to come on and talk more about that, because I'd love to hear how that journey has unfolded for you. So glad you're here with us today, Rachel. All right, everybody, sit tight just for a minute. We are going to share information about our sponsors, and then Kathy, other Kathy, you're up next, just so you can be ready. We are supported by SoberLink, the high-tech, tamper-proof, stellar quality, best-in-class breathalyzer and accountability tool. This episode features a dozen lived experience experts on the importance of consistency and reliability in relationship success. It cracks me up when I hear a newly sober person talk about going to the gym to get lean and buff for their partner as part of their early sobriety transformation. Listen, if you want to go to the gym for the mental health benefits of exercise, I am all for that. But if you think your partner cares about what your arms look like after a decade of the trauma from alcoholism, you are making less sense than you did when you were drunk. I should know. I was one of those men who thought losing some weight and uncovering my padded six-pack might fix all of our problems in early sobriety. But you didn't care how I looked then, did you, Sherry?
Yeah, in early sobriety, I couldn't stand the sight of you, even if you were buff. But it didn't have anything to do with your physical appearance and your body shape. I was repulsed by your inconsistency, your breath, and I could not rely on anything you said, or, as something that you would say that you were going to do and stick with it, like sobriety, for example.
So consistency and reliability was the key to nervous system regulation and the start of trust building for you. Am I hearing that right?
Yes. Consistency and reliability helped me stop planning your murder.
Oh, that's good.
Things you don't normally say on a podcast.
That's where SoberLink comes in. If you are the former drinker trying to rebuild trust in a relationship and recovery, or trying to create peace in a co-parenting situation, SoberLink is 100% all about consistency and reliability, the kind that you need. SoberLink is not a gotcha device, not a handheld breathalyzer that can be shoved in the former drinker's face at times of relationship tension, or as a condition of co-parenting, letting the former drinker have access to the kids. SoberLink's testing is scheduled, and all of the stakeholders and accountability partners have access to the testing schedule and the results. SoberLink's technology and physical construction is reliable and tamper-proof. SoberLink is a true investment in consistency and reliability.
So, before you spend money on a gym membership to impress your partner, invest in a tool that supports your sobriety muscles and gives your partner or a co-parent an indication of the consistency and reliability they really need.
To learn more about SoberLink and for a promo code for $50 off your device, please go to soberlink.com/untoxicated. We are supported by Echoes of Recovery. Rather than play a testimonial from someone in our Echoes family, this entire episode is a promotion of what it means to become part of Echoes of Recovery. 10 of the 12 people from that first retreat 3 years ago made time to come together and support this mission. I'm not really into customer retention statistics, but I have a feeling that 83% is better than industry standards by a lot. And when you consider that we are still in contact with the 2 Hummingbird Ninjas who aren't here, well, and they aren't here just for scheduling conflicts, that means our retention is 100%. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I really don't care about your numbers, their stats, boy, but these are my sisters and I love them. Our Echoes of Recovery members don't pay to be part of some club. They donate to support a mission that they are an intricate part of. Their financial donation is just the tip of the iceberg, and this podcast episode is proof. Here we have 10 of my sisters making more than a financial contribution to the mission. They are sharing their stories because, as the OGs, when they needed support, stories like theirs were not yet being told. And now they serve as a permanent resource for the people who come after them.
Well said, Sherry, and I could not agree more. If you're on the fence about joining us in Echoes of Recovery, don't just think about what the program might have to offer for you. Think about what you have to offer people in need who need you just as much as you need them. That's what belonging is all about. So, do you belong in Echoes of Recovery? Now, there's an easy way to find out. Please go to echoesofrecovery.org to take our easy and confidential 1-minute quiz to find out if you belong in Echoes of Recovery. All right, Kathy, we gave you a little bit of a warning, and you are up now. Kathy, your marriage had a really traumatic end in a much different way than Dusty's did. Your husband just didn't view his drinking as problematic the way you did, and he could not see the trauma alcoholism caused for you. You had to be very careful when you divorced. The whole process included lots of planning and preparation and contingencies. And I think that's an important story for our listeners to hear, especially for a listener who might feel stuck in a toxic environment. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'm happy to be here and thankful that my microphone actually works. I was afraid technology. I was afraid the technology wasn't going to work, or I was going to be tech dumb. So it was a long time coming, but it took me a while to get courage to actually leave and follow through the plan. And that started to unfold, I think, by attending the retreat. I had the support from the ninjas, and I didn't feel alone. Like Anne-Marie had said, gosh, I thought that I was the only person that this was happening to. And wow, they really do have a playbook. You know, it's everything that you're saying is really similar to what I'm dealing with. But my ex-husband, or soon to be, the divorce isn't completely final yet, started to get belligerent and aggressive with the copious amounts of alcohol he was drinking. And so that became like every night that he would drink probably half of a bottle, and sometimes half of a 1 3/4 liter bottle of alcohol. Bourbon whiskey was his chosen beverage. And so he would drink till he passes out, and then he would kind of get belligerent, aggressive, and I would either go upstairs to try and be asleep before he would come up, or if he would go up before I would try and wait out and hope that he would go to bed before, fall asleep before me. There were a couple of times where it was a physical altercation. There was some issues that had occurred and left me really quite nervous. So I had, in December of 2023, I had started a little bit of that planning, copying records, trying to have all of those information so I could, start to get myself ready to leave. I had a couple of friends here that, local to where I live, that were my solid support system, and that I'm super thankful for them. And one of them came to me one day and said, hey, I found this little cottage. I really think that you should rent it. I think that this is your sign to leave. And so I always had a go bag in my car for my 2 dogs and my cat in case I had to leave quickly. But then I started storing stuff at my mom's house. I started storing stuff at my friend's house so I could, the really important stuff of the things that mattered to me from home. And then I went to look at the cottage and rented it in February of 2024, and had to wait for our youngest son to come home from his SEER experience with college. He had an internship in college where he was away. And so he was coming back from that and needed to go back to school at spring break. So I had everything all together and ready, new inventory, what type of things I wanted to bring from the house. and in my mind sketched it out. So then I had another friend that I met in Echoes. Coincidentally, she and I joined at within the same couple days, I think, and we're on the first call together. And she ended up, so my son went back to school on a Sunday. My husband's an airline pilot and he left on a trip. And so he was gone for a 3-day trip. My friend came on Monday, helped me pack up as much as I could to bring over to my mom and then to bring over to the cottage. And then another friend had gifted me 2 movers and 5 of her friends with pickup trucks. And so we literally moved the contents of my whole cottage in 2 hours to here. And that was the last time I set foot in that house, and super thankful to be away from that. It took me a long time to decompress. I still feel like I am decompressing, but it's my stress level is much less. I really am starting to feel like I've got more energy. I had to start all over again. I was a stay-at-home mom, so I'm starting at the bottom with the new job that I got in November. So it's been humbling, but I feel like that to begin again is where I need to be, so I can, learn about myself again and learn who I am, because I gave all of that up for my family and my husband and partner, and it's a learning process, and I'm still working on it, but I'm in a so much better place than I was when we were on the retreat.
Well, I know I speak for everybody when I say we are so thankful, and just all of us feel blessed to know that you are out of that toxic environment, because the degree to which we were all scared for you, I can't even imagine what it was like to live through. And I know you got a lot of support from these wonderful people on this video call with us today. But I think I'm so glad that you were here and willing to tell that, because I just know we have listeners that feel like they're stuck and they don't think they've got an option, whether it's financial or it's more than that. It's abusive to the degree that it was for you. And you are living proof that there is no level of stuck that you can't extricate yourself from. Not saying it's easy. I don't want to underestimate the work that's involved, but when you put a community around yourself, both the physical community you had from your local friends, and then people from around the country that would do anything for you, you can do it. You can do it, and you are living proof. Thank you so much, Kathy. Couldn't be more proud of a human than I am of you. Oh, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Jane, as Sherry said earlier, you have always been a natural leader in our Echoes of Recovery group, right from the beginning when you coined that term about discovery. But not only are you one of the true OGs, like Kathy, you're a researcher and you study up on things and you want to learn. And that's very, very compelling when you share what you've learned with others. People just gravitate towards you and want to learn from you. You're married and your husband has years of sobriety. What have you learned about your marriage? But more importantly, what have you learned about yourself?
I learned that my husband doesn't appreciate that part of me. I can't.
the
The
studier, the learner.
Yeah, he doesn't like that I know more than he does most of the time. So that part doesn't work so well in our relationship, because I usually don't open my mouth until I have thoroughly educated myself on a topic. My dad was always one of those who, if he asked me what happened, he already knew the truth. So I could never get away with a lie. And that's kind of all I've always done it too, is like, I'm not going to speak on something until I'm educated. So he's sober. I wanted to point out one thing first. Most of us joined at the tail end of the pandemic. And there was a ton of trauma in that feeling stuck in that. And on top of all that, the height of alcoholism in my relationship. And so I think that that definitely helped bond us because we were all feeling so alone in both those ways at the same time. So it's one thing to live with an alcoholic. It's another to be locked in your house for 2 years with an alcoholic or newly sober person in your face. So I think that we have a unique viewpoint from living through that. And maybe it just, I'll wrap it up at the end. I'll bring it full circle. But I find myself very, some would say, my husband would say numb. I find very like low emotion most of the time. I think I spent a lot of years in a very reactive state. And now it's just like not much bothers me, even though we are still surviving the chaos of the financial hurt of addiction from my husband. It's not good. It's not good. The decisions like didn't change. And I think somebody said something about when you just like stop growing. And I think that's kind of what happened. So while we're still married and we really don't argue that much, and we don't have a lot in common, and we don't do a lot together. And that's very different from how we started our relationship, where I thought like romantic love was having your best friend and all you did was things with them and you didn't do anything else. Well, it turns out, as I got to discover myself, is I didn't do any of the things I liked to do because I was too busy making sure we were doing things together. So I think that's like the biggest thing that's changed in my discovery is like I've figured out what I like to do and I'm going to go do it. And I don't care if how you feel about that because I'm going to take care of me first. And I am also a heavy lifter. I like to pick up heavy things and then slam them down. I feel like that is reflective of many things in my life. I'm a personal trainer now because I had to know everything about it and then apply it before I could tell anybody else about it. And then I want to say in my discovery, I found out I have ADHD and I'm on the autism spectrum. That explains why I was called intensely codependent, obsessed, because I had hyper-focused attention trying to figure out a problem. And it took a lot of pressure off of me feeling broken to understand that I do that with everything, not just alcoholism. So like, yes, we all have some codependent behaviors, but like the way that I applied my brain to the problem is how I apply my brain all the time. And that was a really big awakening for me to find the right therapist who helped me figure that out, who I didn't feel like I was having to educate the therapist that that's really just not what's going on. And that was really frustrating for many years. So whatever I like in the past, like whatever I apply my mind to, I can figure out and I can do, but that doesn't work on another person or in a relationship.
Right.
And so as much effort and attention and education I put into trying to understand it and figure it out, I accept fully now that like that's his. I can't change you. I can't fix it for you. If you feel bad about it, you need to sit with those feelings. And I think to feel safe in the past, I would feel like I needed to regulate his emotions to like calm the house. And now I just go, okay, go deal with that. That's nice. And go to the gym or whatever I'm going to do for myself. What's one more thing? I'm also very direct. I'm going to tell you exactly what I want, when I want it, how I want it. And I expect that like from him too. And that's been really hard because I think that that's a trend in the addict world is they like wait for other people to feel their needs for them. So you're going to have to edit me out because now I'm on the phone. They just got home. I knew it was going to happen right now. I was like, crap, no, I'm going to do it. So
It just looks like you live a real life. That's
Yeah.
really important. That's good.
Well, it's still chaos. I told you, like nothing is planned. So just speaking my needs and knowing what they are has been a huge growth for me. And then I just go like meet them myself most of the time. So I think what Kathy was saying, like I have friends that I like to go do this with, friends that I like to go do that with, like, and I fill those needs through different people and through different things that I enjoy doing. And I don't put all of that expectation into my relationship. And that I think that kept me stuck for a very long time. So I got really good at that. What was the last thing I was gonna say? I think that's pretty much it. I think I covered most of it.
Well, it's really cool that you still have that intensity of your investigation and your research. It's just about stuff that you can actually learn about and then act upon instead of learning about fixing somebody else, which there is no appropriate action to make that go well. So I love that you talked about how you come across as low emotion instead of being in a reactive state, because you're not banging your head against the wall anymore. You're trying to fix things you can actually fix, stuff in your own life. Your discoveries continue to be truly amazing. Thank you so much.
I think just in relationship, when you're like that for so long, they like expect that. And that's what like love is like you responding to my emotion. But I'm like, I don't have to. Like I can choose how and when I do that. And so it's been that's been a big back and forth with us. Like you don't care. No, I'm not gonna fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this isn't about me, but I will say really quickly, I faced a lot of that with you, Sherry, when you just stopped reacting. And originally, my initial reaction was to tell you, you were wrong because you don't love me enough. And then I finally woke up to the fact that, holy shit, not only does she not maybe love me enough, she doesn't like me very much either. And you can't berate someone into liking you. So I needed to either fix myself and become a more likable person, or it was going to be over because, yeah, just being sad that the reactive state doesn't exist anymore. It's not going to fix a relationship. That's for sure. Super interesting. Evie, we're coming back to you. You did such a great job explaining what the Hummingbird Ninjas name meant. Let's ask you a little deeper question. You really struggled living together with your husband in sobriety. Now you have a unique arrangement that I think is super important for our listeners to hear about. There's more than one way to navigate marriage and recovery. Would you please share your living arrangements between you and your husband? Tell us how that came about and like what's going on.
Yeah, so I don't exactly remember the timeline. It's all kind of a blur, honestly. It may have happened before the retreat or it may have happened after the retreat. I honestly don't remember. But I was like very deep into like the being detached stage at the point when this happened. Like I would like he'd be passed out on the couch and I would like look at him, see if he was still breathing. Cool, he's still breathing. Move on with my day, you know. And that was that. But my husband woke up one day and decided that he needed to make a change. And he, I guess, decided that he like couldn't do it like at our home or in a situation where he was in. So he called his parents and told them to come pick him up. And he did not talk to me about it first. I came home and he was gone. Um, and so he got a job working where his parents live, which is about 2.5 hours away from where we are. He did not immediately get sober. It was not like rainbows and butterflies immediately. It was a long, windy road. There was a car accident. There was like a couple of other unfortunate things that, happened and visits and trips and whatever. But he ended up getting a really good job there. And eventually he did get sober. Now, is he like in recovery and like doing all of that? No. But he's like dipping his toe into taking care of, his health, his mental health and physical health and being, a better communicator and whatnot. So now it's been however long it's been, I don't know, 2, 3 years, more than 2, it's been more than 2 years. He still has that job there and it's still a really good environment and a good job for him. So he stays with his parents like 2.5 hours away during the week, and then he comes home every weekend. Now he comes home every weekend now. He didn't before because there was a while where we only had one car and that was a whole nother situation. But he comes home every weekend now and it is I mean, worlds better than it was. Um, is it perfect? No. Do we still have stuff to work on? Of course, but it is definitely enjoyable. I would say we're in a spot now where we are like becoming friends again. And like we have fun together, we laugh, we cook dinner together, and I appreciate the time that we spend together. But the time that we've had apart has been really healing for me personally. Um, I feel like I've had room to grow. And we never considered ourselves separated because we weren't separated. Like we were still married. We still saw each other on a regular basis. We still talked on the phone and FaceTimed every day. But I don't know if he did so consciously or unconsciously, but he gave me the space that I didn't even know that I needed. Uh, and I mean, I got a master's degree. I picked up a new hobby, which is show choir in the city that I live in, and we have a performance this weekend, so that's pretty exciting. And I've gone on like some solo trips. I've seen friends from Echoes. I've just had this like space to grow and to like I have been with my husband since I was like 21 or 22. And so I never really felt like I had time to just like be an adult by myself. And while I'm still married and I still love my husband, and like I said, he comes home every weekend and it's great. Like I'm glad he comes home every weekend. I feel like I've had the chance to like grow into my like independent self that I needed to do some growing. And I was just gonna close it out by saying, somebody was talking about like the I'm sorry flowers and like I think it was Mindy that was talking about the I'm sorry flowers, and my husband used to do the same thing. And just like the growth that we've made is like now instead of I'm sorry flowers, he brought me this Taylor Swift sticker and coloring book. I realize this is like a, like a listening situation and nobody can see what I'm showing everybody, but it's a Taylor Swift coloring book and it has Taylor Swift stickers in it. And so like I feel like just like that compared to even a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever, is like tremendous growth that he like knows me this well to know that like, this is like what I want. I do not want flowers that are gonna like die in a week. Which flowers are still nice, don't get me wrong, but this is like wow, I feel like he really knows me. I feel like we've really grown a lot and I've had the space that I've needed to grow as a person as well.
I wish I lived closer so I could come see your show choir show.
Oh my gosh, yes, I
I
know.
would love that.
I would love it if everybody could come. That would be amazing. I think I was counting this morning. I think I have like about 20 people coming and like family and friends and whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed that I invited this many people. But now that it's like happening, I'm like, everybody just come, yeah, just like show up and, we have couches and blow up mattresses and whatever, just come. And yeah, it's been super fun. It's different. I finished my grad school program and I was like, okay, now what do I do? I'm still like, I need something to do. So it's been a really fun hobby that I picked up.
Well, it's been great to hear of all the the hobbies, the career changes, the things
Oh
that you
yeah, I
guys
made
are
a career
doing. I mean,
change.
it's
That too.
yeah. I mean, it's fascinating when you get this horrible albatross that's around your neck out of the way and you start to grow and get healthy, the things that you all can do. I mean, it's just truly amazing. I'm so glad that you explained your living situation. I don't think there's anything that stifles people more than the just kind of the glommy, codependent grossness of active addiction and recovery, individual recovery. You need breathing space, and that looks different to different people. I'm not proposing that everybody do what you did, but what you did is an option. It worked for you, and that space that you created between the two of you is allowing you to find ways to grow together now. It's really, really, really cool. And I hope that people just in their own experience, just try to think of ways you can be creative. It doesn't have to be you either stay together and you're all over each other or you get divorced tomorrow. There are other options. So
Right.
thank you.
And I mean, I think I thought, I was like in the place where I was like, oh my gosh, should I leave? Should I not? I was in the like, should I stay or should I go stage, like when he decided to make this change. And it was, first of all, it was about money. I was like, well, I don't have the money to like rent an apartment and I don't want to stay at my mom's house because I have dogs. And the other thing was the dogs. I was like, I don't want to take them away from their environment and their yard and like their routine. Everybody here knows that I'm obsessed with my dogs. I think, we're all obsessed with our animals. But I said to him like a couple weeks ago, like, if it wasn't for the dogs, I think they saved our marriage, honestly, because I would have been like, peace out. I'm going to stay with my mom, you know? Um, so I don't know. But I mean, like I said, he's the one that like made the change, but I don't even know if he knows now that he like really gave me the space that I needed.
Well, he gave you the Taylor Swift coloring book, and I think that counts for a lot. I know you said it's audio, not video, but I really hope another Kathy who does her social media picks up the part where you're showing the coloring book to everybody and everyone's smiling in both approval and a little bit of jealousy I saw there. I know I'm jealous. I'm a Swiftie. I can admit it. Karma, you have a unique perspective that I think is shared by a ton of our listeners. Your husband is sober. He has been for years, but he's not interested in resentment processing with you. He wants to look forward, not back at the things that have happened in the past. How do you manage that? And how are you doing finding peace and contentment in your recovery?
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
And keep it to just a few minutes, would you? You know, I gave you 6 years worth of talking, and now condense that.
So yeah, 6 years. This is how long I've been dealing with this. He got sober about 6 years ago. He did dig pretty deep into recovery for the first 2 years. He did therapy. He spent time in an outpatient program. He was very dedicated to his AA, and then one day it stopped. I mean, he gave up recovery much easier than he gave up drinking. I think the thing that caused a problem for us is that he quit his recovery before I realized that I needed my own recovery or my own growth and discovery. And so by the time I was working on myself, or felt that I needed to work on myself and was looking for resources for myself, and then wanting to come back and talk to him and do some of these things that I was learning about, like resentment processing, he was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm moving on. I'm sober. And and he's still sober, and I'm very proud of him for that. That's no small feat, especially when you're not doing the recovery work. But he doesn't want to go back and look at what happened then. It's like, that's in the past. I'm not that person anymore. So So I have had to kind of learn to just move forward. And I think I'm in a very similar position as Jane right now. He's still sober. I've given up on kind of that best friend relationship. We're married, and so we must do everything together. Um, I'm developing or refinding some of my interests and passions, and I'm doing things on my own, or doing a lot of things with our daughter, who is elementary age. Um, One thing that I have learned about myself recently is I've been dealing with a lot of like family issues and tensions, and just growing, getting older and dealing with things. And I think that a lot of the stuff that I've learned along the way, by working on myself, by going to therapy, by talking to all of you lovely ladies, and the rest of the Echoes people, is I've learned how to kind of hold my own in situations. So in moments of tension with other people, I don't like take the bait when they're presenting these toxic things, and trying, whether intentionally or not, trying to start a fight. I don't dig in. I know how to just kind of step back now, and just be and see the situation for what it is, and not get myself all in the mud with that. Um so um so while we haven't processed resentments, I do feel like maybe I've kind of worked on processing them myself to an extent. Every once in a while something triggers, and I come up with a resentment that, like, oh, I wish I could talk about that. Maybe someday we will, but I'm not holding my breath and saying that I can't move forward until we've processed every last bit of this. It is what it is right now, and maybe someday it will be something else, but until then I'm just being me.
Well, you are somebody that we all love a great deal. I love that you don't take that toxic bait anymore. Just, not being reactive. That's an enormous win, not just in our relationships, but in
Yeah.
our life overall.
I think what we've learned with our growth and healing is how to take those lessons with living with the addict and applying them into other situations. Because I know I have to agree, Karma. I'm like you. I'm trying not to be reactive, and when I see a situation, and not take the bait, and just kind of see the situation for really what it is, and kind of avoid getting in the mud, as you said. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's a great lesson.
it is. It's fantastic. Okay, one last lightning round question to no one in particular, to all of you. Feel free to jump in and give your lightning round answer. Life gets in the way. You're all busy and accomplished people from all across the country with jobs and kids and responsibilities. But if you could snap your fingers and be back in that retreat house in the mountains for a week with your Hummingbird Ninjas, would you do it? And why?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sign me up. Where do I
Wait,
need to be?
why? Because I love you all and you're so much fun and you're family.
Because we get to be ourselves when we're around each other.
Amen.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
authentic. It's like I feel like 1,000% comfortable with all of these people. Like I don't have to pretend, I don't have to put on an act, I don't have to be anything other than myself. And that's so rare.
It's easy. I mean, I think the first time that we all walked into that cabin together, it wasn't this awkward, oh, hi, it was easy. It was just like we were all already friends and all already knew each other.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like it. And, Dusty, Karma, and I drove out to Colorado. We'd never met each other. We almost ran out of gas because we were talking so much.
Yep.
And then, Eve and I were roommates because we had briefly met before and we were the only people we knew originally. So that authenticity that you all know my secret and you still love me, and you see me for who I am outside of my marriage is awesome.
I had almost like an intro night because again, Nikki was mainly the one that like pulled me in. So the first night there was Nikki, Jane, and I just randomly walking through the streets of Denver, carrying my bags, going to meet two women that I stay in their hotel room, two women that I've never met in person. So we had some time together. We randomly saw a concert at Red Rocks Amphitheater, and then we went to meet with all of you. And I think it's such a unique thing to know that even though we don't all keep in touch on like a daily basis, there's no question in my mind that at any point, if I need something, I could reach out to any single one of you 10 years from now, 5 years from now, and I'll have a friend. I'll have support. I'll have love. I would never doubt that for a second. No matter how much time goes by, I could reach out to any one of these people and they'd be there for me. No doubt.
And we would pick up just like we did, like however long ago it was.
I think for a lot of us, I mean, I know for me, it was the first time that I felt safe in a long time.
It was also the first time that I did something just for me. That I said, like, I want to do this. I'm not asking. I'm going. And that is also really powerful in itself.
Yeah.
Well,
we did get to laugh a
you
lot.
choked me up, Rachel.
Well, I
But
mean
we
that.
did
I mean that. And I don't mean safe. I mean, I think for some of us, there's a physical safeness, but there was an emotional safeness. There was a depth to that place. Those hummingbirds, all of it.
Even
It was
all the
unreal.
scares in the forest.
I will take that. Let's do it. Sign me up.
Yeah, amazing. And you're right, Mindy. There were a lot of laughs in between the tears and the hugs and the conversations. It was amazing for our listeners. You won't know this, but in between the talking on this episode, there was a lot. The chat was very active with planning y'all's next reunion together. I know you've gotten together before since the original time together 3 years ago. And maybe you'll be able to do it again. I hope so. I want to encourage our listeners to go back and listen to episode 150 to truly hear the change and progress that's taken place with all of these incredible people. One thing I'll point out, there were some aliases used in the original episode 150 because, when you're like Bambi trying to get your legs underneath you, you don't know how much you want your real name out there on the internet, even if it's only your first name, and just the boldness for everyone to come here today and tell it like it is and not care who knows it. That's a huge change. But I strongly, strongly recommend to listeners that you go back, make it the next episode you listen to so that you can hear the change that has taken place and know that change is available to you wherever you are in your recovery and discovery process. These are and always will be the Echoes of Recovery OGs. We love you, and we're so thankful for you being on this episode with us today. If this roundtable discussion was helpful to you, please remember that the Untoxicated podcast is brought to you by the 501c3 nonprofit organization Stigma. Stigma does not take government money. This work is only possible through the fully tax-deductible donations of listeners like you. Please consider setting up a recurring monthly donation of just $10 to keep this podcast thriving. Please go to supportuntoxicated.org to show your support. Thanks for listening to the Untoxicated podcast.
And we're so thankful for you.